All right, strata fees. What are they? What separates a good strata from a bad strata? Are low strata fees good? Are high strata fees bad? How exactly does this work? Okay, so every strata has strata fees. These are used to maintain and take care of the common shared space that is used by every unit, right? So you have mechanical systems, a roof, shared building envelope. So how do you determine the best way to take care of this in a way that it lasts the longest and you get the most use out of the building and the most important systems over the long term? Well, the amount that you pay will depend on the approach the Strata Council chooses to take. The Strata Council is basically comprised of owners that meet on a monthly and an annual basis to discuss different things going on in a strata, such as complaints, such as issues that come up, and how they can determine what to decide as far as the long term outlook on a building goes will be based off of the depreciation report. The depreciation report is a report that's required to be done by every strata every 5 years that outlines the quality of the mechanical systems or roof, building envelope, foundations, basically the most important stuff. And in that report, the Strata Council can come together and make up a plan regarding how they want to approach the maintenance of the building. Now, how much they choose to charge for these different things that come up will be based off of the strata fees. So you can have an approach where a building pays a lot up front and pads up the contingency reserve fund to deal with problems that come about, or they can take the approach of charging less and then people pay more out of pocket in the form of special levies. Special levies are basically just a fancy way of saying a fee or a lump sum payment that you make to deal with the repair. Now, you can pay a lot or a lot less, I should say, depending on whether your contingency reserve fund has more or less money in it, and there's pros and cons to having people pay a lot of pay a large monthly fee and pad up a contingency reserve fund versus pay a low fee and then get charged more for a special assessment, as well, or take a hybrid approach where you kind of charge a moderate amount and then you have a decently strong contingency reserve fund, but you still will get hit with levies regardless. Now, so the pros and cons. As it relates to the pros and cons, okay, if you're paying a lot monthly off the get go, you might consider the idea that you could get a better return and use that money for something else, whether it can affect affordability as far as factoring that into the monthly. No, other things as well. Some people will say that if they're sitting on more money, they'll find more ways to spend it. That's not always true, but it's something to take into consideration as far as pros and cons goes. Next, you have the for pros and cons for charging a lower monthly. Well, if you're charging a lower monthly and the contingency reserve fund isn't as full and something happens, the amount that you're going to have to pay to fix that is going to come out of pocket. So the special levies can be more in that scenario. And then the third approach, is similar. If something goes wrong and every owner has to get levied, then that amount will be, you know, unless it's something crazy, somewhat moderate relative to what other stratas who take pay now approach. Interestingly enough, the average price per square foot for strata fees that somebody in Toronto is paying is around 75 cents, and in Vancouver, that's 45 cents. So they definitely take more of a pay now approach compared to what we have here. So as it relates to stratas, how do you assess whether it's a good or a bad strata? Couple things. So one would be the strata council, whether they have smart leadership and people who are proactively dealing with problems rather than just kicking the can down the road. Two, you have proactive property management, staying on top of things and managing the building well. And three, you have the building itself as far as the construction quality and where it sits, right? before you have the people in the building. Regardless of the building, there's going to be expenses and maintenance, as the majority of the most important mechanical elements of a building will typically require upkeep as well as replacement or renovation. It's just a matter of when and then deciding on the optimal route to kind of structure the payment schedule. The degree to which it is managed well really depends on whether they can make the best decisions given what the depreciation report says as well as the different problems that come about.